To the Wednesday, February 25th work session of the Village Board of Trustees. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin by standing for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, well, I have a few announcements. I think a few of us have announcements, but I'll get started by talking about something that I know a lot of us have been talking about for what seems like years, but it's really only been weeks, and that's snow. When we've had our storms, the DPW crews have been doing an outstanding job at keeping our roads clear and safe. And they have just recently gone through and done some additional snow removal on the main thoroughfares of the village. But no municipality can remove all of the accumulated snow mounds on the side streets. And it's particularly challenging on streets where there's on-street parking permitted because it's just the snow accumulates between the vehicles, and a lot of us have small properties. And so it's tough to pile the snow onto our property. It would be great if we had endless amounts of staff and money and time, and we could just remove every pile of snow, but we just can't do that. As it is, we've been having snowstorms pretty much every weekend, and I know we're carefully looking to see at the expenditures for overtime for DPW and all of their hard work. So I think we all just need to be mindful about how we can, each of us, help in our own little way. And I have a few suggestions to keep in mind. One of them is a real safety concern, and that is adopt a hydrant. If you have a fire hydrant adjacent or nearby your property, when you're out shoveling your walk or your driveway, please take a few extra moments and shovel 3 to 4 feet radius around the nearby hydrants. It will, the just minutes that it takes for a fire to shovel out a hydrant in the case of an emergency could make a real difference for someone's home and life. And also, please, when you're driving side streets, sometimes it's going to take longer. So try to have patience with your neighbors. Roads that normally are comfortably two-way, the snow is encroaching on us. So sometimes it takes us a little longer than it would in the springtime. And when you are shoveling out your driveway and your adjacent sidewalks and walkways, please make an effort to put the snow on your own property. And I know that's really tough for some of us who have small lots, but you're actually not allowed to push snow from your property onto the streets. And if you do notice any neighbors who are doing that, either with plows or shoveling their own snow into the street, if you feel comfortable speaking to them directly and asking them not to do that, great. If you recognize something is happening and it's a concern, it's an undue burden on the community to have snow shoveled out into the street after the plows have come through, then if the police actually, we would like to get compliance, and that you can call the Ossining Police Department, and they could find someone, but really we just want to get compliance. We want to keep the roads as clear as we can, and that also means if you're parked on the street, when you shovel out, to do that as respectfully as you can, and try, instead of shoveling the snow into the street where it's going to get in people's way, to shovel it onto private property if you can, or beside the sidewalk. I know it's challenging for all of us, and I know we're all doing our best to just do your best to be mindful of that. Okay, let me move into events. Lots of exciting events coming up. 2 of them related to the Solarize program, which I know I've spoken about before, so if you're a regular viewer, or if you've been watching community information, you may have heard about the Solarize Ossining Briarcliff program. We had a really terrific kickoff in our library a couple of weeks ago, and that was focused primarily on residential. We had ours in the Ossining Library, but the Briarcliff Library was also planning to launch that week, and they got snowed out. So we have rescheduled. Anybody in Ossining or Briarcliff is welcome to come on March 15th. It's a Sunday at 2 o'clock at the Briarcliff Public Library. So that's Sunday, March 15th at 2 o'clock. Come if you all are interested in considering solar on your property. The installer will be there, the folks from the Solarize program will be there to tell you all about how you can take advantage of it. There's special pricing available to people in our community who sign up by June 1st. So now you can find out all about it. There's no commitment to just show up, it's to find out about it. And it's a program that's being brought to you by all 3 municipalities, the villages of Ossining and Briarcliff and the town of Ossining. And we're also partnering with Green Ossining, which is an environmental group to help connect with the community. So I hope you'll join us Sunday, March 15th at the Briarcliff Library. And for our commercial property owners, we have a special event next Thursday, March 5th at 7 p.m. at Maya Riviera. And that is going to be just for the commercial property owners anywhere in the town of Ossining. That's everybody also in the village of Ossining at Maya Riviera at 7 o'clock. And the Best Energy is the installer for commercial properties, which is a little different than residential. So please come or tell your favorite commercial owner neighbor that they should really come find out about it, because it's a terrific way for them to lower their energy bills in going through this program. Okay, 2 more quick things, and then I will
That's
turn.
on North State Road, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
but people won't
Yep,
know.
you're right. Yeah, I don't have the street address, but Maya Riviera Restaurant out on North. Well, thank you. 518 North State Road, Maya Riviera, March 5th. That's Thursday night at 7 p.m. And it seems like maybe a few of us will be there. That'd be great. The following week, on March 12th, I hope you'll join us at the Ossining Documentary and Discussion Series. This month's offering is Mercedes Sosa, the voice of Latin America. She was a singer, and her songs were very political in nature. Even when they weren't political in nature, just her singing it all became political in nature. She had a very, very interesting life, and I am really excited for this program. It's a little bit different in that we're going to actually open up with live music. The program officially starts at 6:30, but on March 12th, this program will begin at 6:15 with some live music that'll be playing into the beginning of the program from the Raging Grannies, which are a local group of women that write political activist songs. So please join us at the Ossining Public Library Thursday, March 12th. And I'll give one more shout out to anybody interested in beekeeping, the Hudson Valley Natural Beekeepers at the it's still February. Yep. Okay. Still have time. Sunday, February 28th at 10:30 a.m. at the Yorktown Grange. If you are interested in learning about beekeeping, as many of you know, we passed legislation about a year and a half ago just a year ago, that allows for beekeeping in the village of Ossining. So if that's something you want to explore, you can reach out to the Hudson Valley Natural Beekeepers on Facebook, or visit honeybeelives.org to learn about this particular program happening Saturday, February 28th at the Yorktown Grange. Whew, lots going on. Who's next? Bob?
I got nothing.
Okay. Trustee Herrera.
Yes. Good evening. I have a couple of announcements. The first one is the Westchester County Board of Legislators Hispanic Task Force, led by Legislator Maizano and Legislator Perez, along with our very own Catherine Borgia, will be hosting a community resource day, as they've been doing throughout the county, on Saturday, March 28th from 10 a.m. to 12 noon at the Ossining Community Center. The next one is Save the Date. Vamos a Hablar is an informal town hall group discussion in Spanish that will be held on Thursday, April 16th from 8 p.m. to 9:30, also at the Ossining Community Center. It's an informal community discussion where we can discuss topics, ideas, issues. It'd be a great opportunity to get that series and that program started. And I am seeking some volunteers, and I know that a lot of members on this board will help to make sure that we get the word out and we kick off our first meeting in a good way. Third, the town of Ossining, Communities That Care, and other sponsoring community leaders and organizations will be hosting a suicide prevention March workshops. It's a series that's being held from March 2nd to March 30th at the Ossining Community Center. All workshops are free. All you have to do is RSVP by emailing rsvp@sisfi.org. And lastly, the Greater Ossining Chamber of Commerce is now accepting vendor and sponsorship applications and is also seeking volunteers for this year's 35th annual Ossining Village Fair, which is on Saturday, June 6th, and volunteers are needed from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. For more info, just call 914-941-0009. Thank you.
Go ahead, trustee Codman.
Yeah, I was, actually, you picked right up on what I was going to mention, which has to do with the fire hydrants. This weekend, I spent about 10, 15 minutes digging out a hydrant, and, you know, that's 10 or 15 minutes you're not going to have water to, the fire department won't have water, access to water to put out a fire for your, if God forbid something happened to your neighbors or your house. So I can't tell you how important that is. I just wanted to reinforce that statement. You know, we have a tremendous volunteer fire department, and they're very, very good at what they do. But if you volunteer and, you know, find a hydrant, you know, in your neighborhood, and if it's covered with snow, please take care of it. It's just the right thing to do. So I encourage everybody to do that. Thanks.
Thank you, John. And with that, we'd actually, Ossining is a community that helps out everybody else, and when someone is in need, and we've been seeing that a lot lately, either through Facebook or through the messages that the board has been sending out. Now, it's time to give a little bit more help to one of the officers, our own police officer. So for his house burned down last week, and now the police department, PDAs, is putting together a fundraiser, which is going to take place March 29, from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. in Maya Rivera restaurant that's in the town of Ossining, and then it's the address is 518 North State Road. So please, I encourage everybody that is watching and everybody else out there to please help out. Just like the police department help us every day, we need to help out to one of our own police officers. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have an interesting agenda for you and the public this evening. The first item on the agenda is entitled the Community Housing Infrastructure Investment Program. This actually comes out of the decision of the state and, in this case, the County of Westchester to attempt to augment some of the funds that have been lost from the CDBG that assisted the village so well for so many years in addressing some of these infrastructure programs that the village might not otherwise be able to proceed with. So in this particular case, for this program, Valor Monastra is here this evening to describe it. It calls for the village to indicate which programs it finds to be of the highest priority, and then we'll be able to pursue them and hopefully achieve success. So Valerie, you want to come forward?
Good evening. All right, so I'm here about the county's Community Housing Infrastructure Investment Program. So the county has, as part of its 2015 capital budget, has authorization for up to $5 million to fund 50% of the projects through this new program. This program is to supplement the lack of CDBG funds. And so the first round of this program is really targeted towards projects that have already been given approvals through the CDBG grant funding applications, and but have not been able to move forward because of the whole issue with the suspension of the funds through the federal government. So in the case of Village of Ossining, we have 3 projects that we have not yet moved forward with that we did receive CDBG funding for in past rounds. And the first is North Malcolm Street Sewer Lining Project, which was a total of about $600,000 project costs, and that the county was supposed to fund CDBG was supposed to fund $230,000 of that project. The second project was Market Square Upgrades, which at that point in time was about $110,000, and then the assumption was CDBG was going to fund $50,000 for that project. And the last project is dealing with the water line replacement and upgrades, of which this is exactly, this relates back to the resolution you passed the last work session, authorizing Andy to move forward with some of the bid contracts. And this would be a $2.5 million project, but through CDBG funds, we were CDBG awarded us $335,000. So I'm here tonight to talk about if there's any particular projects that we would like to identify to the county that we plan to move forward with. Clearly, I think the water line replacement and upgrades, I mean, we are moving forward with that project anyhow, so if we can get some money towards that project, I think that would be very helpful. And then the North Malcolm Sewer Street lining project, I know is something of high priority to the village engineer. And, but it's been something that has been postponed, waiting to find out what's gonna happen with the CDBG funds. So those are the two projects, I think, when we had an internal meeting, were of the highest priority. Market Square upgrades, that project was supposed to, basically upgrade Market Square, but this was prior to any discussions of redevelopment of that site. I mean, this goes back to, I think, about 2009, CDBG round. So at this point, I mean, I think through internal discussions, I think, at least for us, the two highest priorities would probably be North Malcolm and water line replacement.
I guess when we talk about the Market Square stuff, is there, you know, obviously we're going through the whole change with the left-hand turn in town on Spring Street. I'm just wondering, is that considered like a shovel-ready project that would be eligible for those kinds of funds at all? Because, I mean, that's already something that's in progress. Obviously, we're doing the study part of it.
Right.
But is that something that would be potentially eligible?
Right, so in this, for the county funds, it is specifically for projects and scopes of works that have already been defined previously and awarded for.
okay.
Okay,
So in that case, it was gonna actually do park improvements and dealing with the brick area, the stages, adding bathrooms, so changing that more into, improving the park in general.
so really the only choices we have are the ones that we had in play before. We you know, and we had never asked for CDBG money as it relates to the Spring Street.
No, now,
project.
however,
Okay.
there will be, at some point in time, state funding that's gonna come out later on this year. I don't know the details of that funding, and I also don't know the application process, but that is something that we could consider, because it does fall within our low mod areas. But again, I checked the state website like about a week ago, and they still haven't posted anything, so I don't know how long that's gonna take before anything unfolds. And
Well, I mean, based on what you said, I would agree that those are the two projects. The Market Square is not, you know, we're not gonna do anything there because we haven't decided what to do with it, so
Right.
I don't know how the rest of my fellow board members feel, but that's,
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I would just say, if we could, I know that when Superintendent Henry Atterbury was in the Parks and Recreation Department, we discussed the many issues in Market Square right now.
Yes.
But of course, as we look into ways to, you know, envision what the future of that site's going to be, we obviously don't want to invest that much into that property at this point. However, is it possible that we could just see what are basic areas that we could fix up and make it safer? I know we have a lot of exposed wiring, the electrical's all messed up, there's bricks that are up and exalted and people trip on it all the time. Is that just an area where we just talk to the Parks and Rec department and see what's a quick fix that we can do, and not even, you know, not even have to do with this project in particular, right?
Yeah, it really doesn't have anything to do with this particular project. We had comments about another park that the village owns, and my suggestion would be let Chris Soy get it steadied in place, and then I would go out and do a field inspection with him when the snow clears, so we can really, and then that's a project that can be taken off independently of this. But it's a good suggestion, so hopefully for the spring, definitely.
In that case, then, I would agree with the other two, the Malcolm Street sewer lining and the water replacements,
Okay.
water line replacements.
So what I'm gonna work with Lori Lee, because we'll need a resolution from the village board at the March 4th, for the March 4th meeting to authorize staff to submit for these projects. And then again, right now, we've only been asked by the county to identify projects that we're planning to move forward with and then provide a resolution. So clearly, as this whole process moves forward, there's gonna be more details that emerge, and at that point, we'll keep the board up to date, and if things shift one way or the other, we'll let you know.
Considering it's been a few years since we did all of the estimates and the expectation of the cost,
Right.
will we have an opportunity to revisit our expenses and then perhaps
Yes.
get more CDBG money that would be commensurate with the
Well,
increased
that's
cost?
what we are gonna find that out as well. I mean, one of the things that's not, when I was speaking with the county, last week, they weren't even sure, ideally, they identified all the different projects, but depending on how many communities say they wanna move forward with some of their projects, or maybe some of the projects have already been done, will depend on how much money the village will actually receive through this project.
And are all municipalities in Westchester eligible for the CHIPS money?
Only the municipalities that have had their CDBG funding frozen, and especially
Right.
the ones in communities like ours, which does provide we're not part of the lawsuit.
We were never in trouble
Right.
because we had excellent practices all along.
Right.
Great. Thank you.
Hopefully, we'll be.
Not to toot our own horn or anything.
All right, great. Thank you, Valerie. The next item is a discussion on ethics law update. And I would, before turning it over to the mayor, I just comment that, I had an opportunity to look at some of the implications of what's in the existing ethics code, and looking at it, quite frankly, it's been modified a little bit over the time, but it basically goes back, I think, to 1974. So this was pretty much when these particular type of laws were put into place. But you always have an opportunity to bring it up to date and apply a contemporary model to make sure that it's in keeping with current standards. So on that note, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
I just wanted to introduce the potential for setting up a subcommittee, which would be, for starters, a couple of members of the Board of Trustees, and also seeking some legal counsel. I know Lori Lee has already done a lot of research. I exchanged texts with Bill Hamilton today. He said that if it were appropriate, he would be happy to be part of that subcommittee. And then there's also just a lot of resources that people can reach out to. I know the town just redid their ethics, their code of ethics, so that's a valuable resource to check what was their process, what were their questions, why did they come to the conclusions they did. I know that their board is, I think, 5 people, and I think one of them's not an attorney, so there's some interesting decisions that they came to. So there's obviously some recommendations that were made that were very specific about social media and things of that sort from the Board of Ethics, but then there's other suggestions that have been brought to the attention of the board by trustees, and I'm sure there's more that could be considered by the subcommittee and then brought back to all of us for review and, with your recommendations. So with that, Manuel, you had expressed interest in perhaps being part of the subcommittee when we spoke a couple weeks ago.
Correct. Yeah, I would like to see that. There's a lot of things that obviously we don't know, and we need to keep up to date with all this technology and everything else what goes around in here, and especially, with Albany and all that craziness that goes up there as well. So I think it's important for us to get a better understanding of what we have and what we can do and how can we improve ourselves at the same time. So yeah, I would like to put my hat on there and see if that will be okay with the rest of the board
Great.
for me to be part of that.
Thank you, Trustee Casada. Trustee Codman, would you be interested in serving on that subcommittee?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it's I think it's an important institution, and I think we need to make sure that it has the boundaries and all the rules necessary to function properly and to serve the community. So, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
Are there any further thoughts on who we should make sure is a part of it? I know Lori Lee actually has a lot of information. I don't know if you want to give us sort of an overview of what you already have to share with the subcommittee.
I did send out some things electronically today, and also I have my legal intern pulling some materials. We keep getting pulled off on some other projects, but over the years, most recently, probably the last 6 months, I've attended any number of, as you know, the continuing education requirements include ethics requirements as well. So I've attended a lot of really good seminars, have a lot of really good written materials. So things have piqued my interest, which I've starred and tabbed, and so I'd like to pull those materials together and include them also with the materials I sent out today, which was a recommendation from NICOM, having Mr. Mancini, having to do with the COHOS code. He said it's not cookie cutter, but he said he would suggest that as being one of his favorites, and as you know, he's the guru at NICOM. So I did start with that one, and I provided a copy of that with the intern, and then instructed him on a few of the others. So maybe what I can do is schedule a meeting with Bill and myself and the two trustees and my intern, and we can start to circulate some materials and maybe to formulate a bullet point list and set some priorities and perhaps a timeline, and we can get going.
Terrific, thank
Be
you.
happy to.
Any further comment?
Not necessary.
All right. Moving on.
Okay, great, thank you. The next item on the agenda is goals and objectives. So historically, boards have identified goals and objectives that they would like to focus on for the year ahead. It's if you go through a lot of the old files in the village, it's been pretty traditional in terms of try to focus on what is most important to you, what it is that you would like to try to either accomplish or take a good swipe at for the upcoming year. Last year, about a year ago, I brought the concept to the board, and basically we had sort of a brainstorming session, and basically everybody's got their own priorities. Some of them jibe with the person next to you, and so what I would like to suggest is, what I would like to do is, because I know it was sent to you online, but I don't know if it was the color copy. When I went to print it, it was not. If you have that, that's fine. Otherwise, I have extra copies. It just makes it a little easier to see the items that were identified and how they were addressed and/or.
No, I've already.
You're all set? Okay. So basically, it's up to the chair and it's up to the board how you would like to do this. I thought, you can do one of two things. I would like to suggest sort of a brainstorming session. Let's take the next 15 or 20 minutes and talk about the things that you would really like to do. Or another alternative, you can either do that first, or we can actually go through 14 if you like and look at some of the things that were identified. And briefly, I would just sort of describe them a little bit, and some of them may still be a priority for this year, some of them may not. So it's it's up to the chair how you would like to proceed.
Well, I mean, Richard, you're most familiar. We've all read through this, but you really created this list for us and then did all the follow-up. Do you want to give us some highlights, even if we don't go through line by line?
Yeah,
of,
I won't go through line. So basically, what I wrote to you today, and just for the public to know, these are really Board of Trustees goals and objectives that you would like to really get into in 2015. So last year when we brainstormed, I took a list of, maybe 50 things, and, some were, where there was like 2 or 3 in favor. We tried to weight them and come up with the list. So what we came out of last year was a list of 39 items, and as it turns out, many of them were addressed, and a lot of them were completed. Yet, some of them, of course, are always going to be there, and they, they remain to be seen in terms of taking additional steps. So I'll just very briefly and quickly, I won't hit them all, but basically you want to you may come up with a list of 50, you may congeal it down to 30, 35. Honestly, the top 10 are the ones that you really want to try to see if you can achieve, and anything that you can get beyond that between 10 and 20 is really, it's to your credit, really. So last year, just for the public might be interested to know, the board identified, I'm going to say number 1, it could have been the top 3. It's not a computerized analysis, but the board identified as number 1, the review and identification of alternative methods of enhanced code enforcement with respect to illegal and/or overcrowded housing, including landlord registration as a possibility. And so I marked it complete. It's not really complete. We've made a good headway in terms of dealing with these issues and trying to look at different ways. We had a meeting the other day with the mayor and some representatives and some interested community members, which was really helpful. So there's many, and by the way, the information that came out of that, I think, proved to be very helpful. So that was great.
Was with us for that as well.
Right. So that was terrific. Yeah. And, also I can report back to you one of the things that we discussed that had been in place before. I spoke to our Director of Code Enforcement today. We do have, flex hours on Wednesday. So we have someone coming in between the hours of, don't quote me, but between 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. So to be able to reach out to to assist homeowners or property owners when they have concerns, to be available after hours, not just between 9 and 4:30. And they also, last Saturday, they were here for a full day. So we're starting that on a experimental basis to see how that works, but we just, every Wednesday and one Saturday a month for now. So that was a very high priority. Always opportunity to look at it more. Investigate traffic calming for Route 9 and village streets is a work in progress. I know there's been a lot of discussion about that. Number 3 was proceeding with the Spring Street two-way implementation, which I think you did a very successful pilot program, and we are meeting with the engineer in order to come in with the specs in order to do the final conversion for that. We talked with council about the use of fire department in connection with property inspections. That's probably an ongoing discussion that maybe you can get to a resolution this year. Of course, we are really proud. Number 5, we responded to the town RFP for police service, and the village was successful in order to wrapping up that deal, and we are now providing police services to the town outside of villages as of January 1. Lobby state of New York with respect to legal definition, that remains to be done. With respect to number 7, settling the outstanding contracts, of course, we were successful in CSEA settlement. We're still working PBA. Identifying the new superintendent of recreation, I think we're all really happy with the selection in that area. So that was a major deal for the community. It's such an important position. Complete the PACE study of planning process, that is done. Complete the RFP for downtown parking parcels. You're still working on that. The investigation of the USPS parking lot was not so successful as a result of the federal government pushing back, but it's something that we can look at further. A lot of investigation in solar building, solar uses, and electricity in the community. Upgrading the downtown standards, working on that. Harbor Square, of course, has been finally, it's completed and well underway. The Kilbrook Sewer Project is well towards completion, and we are just waiting for certain of the finishing work on that. The vacant property law is outstanding. Sending out the RFP for the water supply, we are working on that, and you've engaged Hazen and Sawyer to help you with that, the professional engineers, and we met with New York City as recently as 2 weeks ago, and they will be coming in to meet with you, I believe, in March, either the first or second work session. Investigating the potential firehouse alternatives is well underway and pending. Considering the long-range plan for 200 Main Street is part of your agenda this evening and also part of your ongoing discussion. And the RFP for the DPW is in process as well. And then you really do knock off a lot of the ones in the first 20, and then as you go through, there are a number of other ones that have been addressed as well, and still some that are open. So I would say that turn it back to the mayor, and I would say that you might want to start by identifying the ones that are of value to you in this list, and then you're open to suggest all the ones that are of major importance to you now. So turn it back to you.
Thank you. There are 2 items in those top 20 that you just highlighted for us that I wanted to ask follow-up questions on. With the Spring Street pilot, did we do any, or maybe Ingrid Richards would have been the person to reach out to the business owners on Spring Street and ask them if they've had any quantifiable increase this year versus last year with the change in the traffic pattern?
For business,
Yeah, that was definitely one of the motivations for doing it, so I was just wondering if we'd had any follow-up with them.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we do, but we can certainly check.
Thanks. And then the other one, you did mention solar, and there's been a lot of increase in opportunities, particularly for private solar. There will be municipal solar buying program. I am told it's imminent, that there will be an opportunity for us to take advantage, because it's a little more complicated when you're a NYPA customer as opposed to a private customer. But I think that opportunity is really going to come to us as members of Sustainable Westchester. We'll be able to take advantage of that program. But where are we with LED street lighting? I know that we'd gotten an estimate, it wasn't exactly what we needed, and.
We were waiting for them to go through our inventory. We anticipate bringing them in, I believe, on March 11th, right, for the work session.
Oh, great.
Yes, yep, and they're going to make the presentation to you. And I had been speaking to the town supervisor today, and she would like to come in as well with her board so that everybody can have the presentation at once.
Oh, great.
Because we make it an additional, bang for the buck in terms of a larger, piggybacking on other contracts by a larger group. So I think March 11th is the date.
Perfect, because that program, at least from the preliminary estimates that we
Yes.
got, that I know it needed to be modified a little bit,
Right.
it was a no-brainer. It was like
No.
you save money immediately, so.
So, what we're talking, so we want to have them come in. The weight's really been on their end. We've attended a number of meetings on this. What we're talking about, I won't go too far afield, but speaking to Paul, and, we've contemplated perhaps having a pilot set up, or maybe doing a pilot installation so people can sort of see what the light quality is like, and so that it gives people an opportunity to see it up front. But that's something you can discuss on March 11th. So it was an idea.
And now, is this the same company that did projects in some other municipalities in Westchester?
Yes.
Maybe
Yep.
before March 11th, some of us might
Yeah.
want to take a
Right.
nighttime drive to, is like Dobbs Ferry or Yonkers, or what
Yep.
were their projects? Do we know?
It was Yonkers and Dobbs Ferry, I believe, was the one. You know what? And I'm not going to speak because I'm not sure, but I drove through Briarcliff. It seems to me that they might have done it as well.
Yeah, we
Looks
can
the
ask.
lighting looks very,
Milford as well.
Okay.
So
All right, thank you.
yeah.
Then I have a few things. At least one of them was in here. Actually, several of the items that were raised in the lower third of this list really speak to Complete Streets concerns. It's traffic flow issues, traffic calming issues, and so I'm thrilled that we have the Complete Streets policy in place. So one of my priorities this year is effective implementation of the Complete Streets policy. And I know that Valerie and I spoke briefly, and I think that she may have followed up with you. To talk about what sort of resources we might bring to make sure that we do a terrific job at getting that out into the community and really making it a worthwhile policy. So implementing that effectively would be one of my priorities. The other thing that I also just touched base with Valerie about today is the green building codes. And I think that Christina, our assistant village planner, you and Valerie are speaking about putting something perhaps even in tomorrow's web blast to reach out to the community and invite community members to be part of that committee. Valerie's already been hearing back from some of our volunteer commissions, the Environmental Advisory Council and Historic Preservation Commission and Planning Board, and gotten some volunteers from those boards to serve on this, temporary role in investigating what green building codes are existing in other communities and how we want to, consider that for Ossining. So I'm very excited that that's moving forward. It was a very productive community meeting that we had, and I'm glad to see that continuing to move forward, and I look forward to, in short order, officially recognizing that committee and then seeing what they come up with this year. Another huge priority for this year is getting out a terrific RFP for the Main Street properties. The Market Square properties. And we have we're getting ready to launch the online platform Mind Mixer, which will be one online way to gain insight into what the community thinks would be good ideas for that and other things. And then we have a couple of public meetings planned, but making sure that we have a really well-crafted RFP for that property going out this year is a big priority. I think that's important. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that process unfolds. And then my last goal for this year is a little more broad, and there are lots of ways that we can make it realized, and that is improving communications. I mentioned Mind Mixer, which is one online form of communication and engaging with the public. We've been seeing more people coming to our public meetings, which is exciting, and keeping the cameras rolling for public comments during our legislative sessions is one way to make sure that the public knows that they are invited to share their comments and ideas. I've been having office hours, and I'm thrilled to have gotten as much engagement from the public as I have every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock right here at Village Hall. And there's certainly more that we can do. So improving communications generally, online, in person. So with that, Trustee DeRio, would you like to share some goals for 2015?
Well, of course, I agree with the goals that you've mentioned. They're very important.
Good.
And we do, you have spoken to all of us, we do have consensus on that. I would like to continue the discussion on enhanced code enforcement with respect to illegal and overcrowded housing. It is the complaint that I hear most often from people, is that issue. And I know you and Manuel met with one of our constituents and got some really great information, but I'm very committed to moving forward with that. Also, I think at the same time, we need to look at how to better involve the fire department and utilize them better in this, and that needs to move forward. Between those two things, I think that'll get us ahead. Next, I think it's really important that we continue the efforts to make Ossining, to improve the perception of Ossining as a place you want to come and do business. Strides have been made, more needs to be done. Getting everything available online, I know that's been moving forward. All of the, we're talking about when people want to build a deck on their house, build a house on an empty lot, put up a 130-unit apartment complex, everything from the small to the really large. All of the departments involved in that, and there's a lot of them, are working very, very hard and do a marvelous job. Eliminating redundancy of information in the paperwork and having all the paperwork available online would go a long way to making it easier. And I know some steps have been taken in that regard, and I'm hoping we can move forward to make it even better, because the easier it is to get that to happen, the more business will come here. And more importantly, the less time all our hardworking village employees will have to spend going through the paperwork. It'll be easier for everybody involved. I'd like to continue discussions with the town on more IMAs. I know we recently got Veterans Park back from the town, but I think that doing an IMA to combine the town and village parks department is important. I also think discussions to combine the town highway department with our DPW need to be brought back. I think that would be a really good thing for us, and in light of the mandate from Albany for us to continue to show how we are reducing the size of government and reducing our expenses, those two things would sit large when we make our report to Albany next year. I'm excited about moving forward with the reestablishment of the Waterfront Vision Committee. To that end, already, we've got Don Elmendorf representing the Coast Guard. He's also an engineer. He works with the DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers, and he's going forward looking for representatives from those two places. The immediate past Commodore of Chatamont Yacht Club, Sandy Mace, is going to be working with us. I've reached out to the folks at Westerly, waiting to hear back, and I spoke Monday night with Liz Feldman, who is the Commodore of the Ossining Boat and Canoe Club, and she said she'd be happy to serve. I wanted to bring to you guys, I'm wondering whether having Chris from the Recreation Department or someone he designates might be appropriate to have on the committee.
Great.
Then I'm going to be talking next week with someone at Riverkeeper, and when Don gets back to me with recommendations, the Corps of Engineers and the DEC, and then we'll be done. And it's a different kind of approach. The idea being is when the stakeholders who have the property down at the waterfront have a project, all the stakeholders involved down there will have already given input before they bring it before our board or any of the other boards. And it's time that the ideas for what to do with the waterfront need to come from the people who actually own the property at the waterfront. And I'm excited about that. I'm done.
That sounds great. Trustee Durayo, did you reach out to Val and Lori at the Boathouse Restaurant?
I'm doing that also, I'm sorry, thank
Excellent.
you. Yeah,
Okay,
they need
that
to
was-
be
that was
there.
the one
They-
piece of the
yes.
line.
Also, the Wunderlichs, who own the property north, people forget
Sure.
about them. They own the,
Sure.
it's actually, most of it's underwater, but they do own the property north of Shattamuck. So I'd like to talk to them as well. I haven't done that yet.
That's a great start, yeah.
If any of the trustees or anybody in the public listening thinks of someone, a stakeholder that we have not thought of, by all means, get hold of me. I don't do office hours in the office. I do office hours 24 hours a day on this little box here. It's real simple. You want to talk to me, you call 914-774-2646. I have a 24-hour rule. If you contact me, I will get back to you within 24 hours, even if it's just to say, I don't have the answer yet, but I'm working on it. So please, call me. You can also contact me at the village, what do you call it? I'm losing my mind. Email. It's all of the trustees, it's our last name. In my case, it's Daraio, D-A-R-A-I-O, at villageofaustining.com, right?
Org.
.org, villageofaustining.org. And I check it many times a day. And again, 24-hour rule, you will hear from me if you contact me. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Herrera.
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I wasn't on the board in 2014, but I must say I agree with every single one of the top 20 priorities. In particular, I would have to agree with Trustee Daraio. I also hear on a daily basis, what are we doing when it comes to illegal housing? How's that conversation going? Are we actually going to be doing something? So that brings me to, have we lobbied the state of New York in respects to the legal definition of probable cause with respect to code enforcement? So I will personally, and I'm sure that my colleagues, as they feel best, will contact their state reps and resources and kind of get the conversation going. Oh, am I off? Is this good? Oh, I've been off all this time? No.
I'm still getting used to how everything sounds.
Oh, no, no, it's okay. No, no.
Picked up, it's just been a little
Okay.
slower, so I wanted to make sure.
Thank you. So I kind of want to get that conversation started. And then as far as my goals, we have a great opportunity of having, within our village, we have an Office of Downtown Economic Development, and we have a Chamber of Commerce that has over 120 members from 3 communities. We have a lot of startup groups that are into many different interests. So now's the time to actually get together and redefine what is our timeline, what is our goal, how are we all working together to achieve what we want in the downtown and for our business community. So I want to get all those groups, our downtown manager's office, our Chamber of Commerce's, our organizations and agencies that are focusing on the revitalization of the downtown and business districts, instead of everyone doing their own thing and kind of repeating efforts and burning certain people out that are involved in different areas. Get them all at the table and kind of get a concise plan about even if it means something as small as choosing the flower pots that we all agree on. That's a small area, but it's getting everyone at the table agreeing on one project at once. I went to the lobby in New York State. The third area, I'm in the process of learning how to actually pay for it. But I think that with the help of the great staff that we have in our clerk's office, we need to find ways to really bring it to the 21st century using more software that will really protect our information and our communication and the way that we operate when it comes to that office. There is state and federal funding in forms of grants that will help us do that, but we have to actually do the applications and work and see if we even qualify for them. So that's another conversation that I would like to get started as well. And Trustee Daraio mentioned this. A priority that everyone on this board has mentioned is the communication and branding of our village. I agree. Unfortunately, sometimes our very own residents do a disservice when it comes to how we talk about our own village, right? And that's something that we have to keep in mind when we see our friends in neighboring villages, right? It all starts at home, right? Like picking up that garbage can or that piece of paper in front of your yard or street and putting it in the garbage, or our lifestyles and practices and how we treat and care for our community. So I want to take advantage of the fact that we actually have a PR firm that works for our village. A lot of cities and I'm mentioning cities because they get a lot more funding and more opportunities, would die to have a PR firm, even part-time, and we actually have one, right? So how are we using it? How can we better use it? And how can we find ways to communicate better? I know that Trustee DeRayo, he has office hours. I do too. You could reach our board members through email and phone. But how are you accessing information? How do you feel that you're being heard? How do you feel that you are knowing how your government operates? And continuing to make sure that you're a part of the process from the very initial starting point. And that leads me to my last two, which is cutting the red tape for business. I'm not saying that we're not good to our businesses, but there are a couple areas that we have to look at when it comes to application processes, equitable enforcement, what that means, how our property owners and businesses feel right now, and partnering up with, as I said, our Chamber of Commerce and local organizations that kind of have the same idea and goal in mind. And then lastly is really an area that hopefully I'll be working with Family Ties and Communities That Care in the school district is Ossining used to have a job fair at the community center where local employers from small businesses to day camps, the county and state jobs would come and really give opportunities for our youth to gain some experience, learn how to write a resume, learn how to interview, know what it means to be a professional and gain some experience. So I want to bring that back to the table. How can we better provide opportunities for our youth starting here in Ossining? And I know that was a lot, and it's kind of very ambitious, but I think we can do it. So
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Codman?
The list is, the 39 items on the list, each and every one of them, I think, has a lot of importance and value. I think it would be good to make the list available online so people have a better idea of what we're discussing now. And I think that people would also get a better sense of what we have accomplished and what we've done. Obviously there are things that are kind of coming off the list, but I think there's a number of things that continue to be ongoing that I think we need to stay focused on. To pick up on just one of the things that the other trustees have said is just talking about branding, talking about our image, and we had a couple of individuals come forward with a proposal about a branding site having to do with Ossining, and not really focused on anything in particular other than the visual elements of our village and what a beautiful place this is. And there's beautiful architecture, there's beautiful views, and I believe that that's something that's worth investing in, and it's one of the things that I hope this group will consider. The other thing you mentioned before, I think the public engagement for the RFP for Main Street is going to be a critical event, and it's going to be critical in terms of really understanding what our community's vision is for our downtown. I'm also very excited about the Ossining Arts Committee, which we had our final interview this evening of a number of candidates that we've interviewed. I think the notion of having village government in support of collaborative arts is something that can have not only be great for our artists here, but it can be great for our commerce and great for our village, and again great for the image of the village that we have. Something that I brought forward to the village last year was the energy audits, and we're almost there to the finish. We've had some struggles finding and gathering certain data elements. Con Ed isn't always really helpful with making information available, because I had a chance to discuss things with Bright Home today, and we're really actually looking for individual firehouse energy use numbers having to do with gas and electric, because really each structure is going to have its own analysis, and each structure has its own situations which have to be dealt with and taken care of. So I'm hoping we'll be able to get those final numbers to Bright Home, and we would be able to get them on the agenda next month, either for the 11th or the last work session of the month. Some of the other things that I think are important, of which I've already volunteered for, which is the Code of Ethics review and looking at potential changes. I think it's very important that that institution be solid and that it have the kind of changes we need to bring it up to date and make it be something that's valued, a valued part of our community. The hiring of our village manager is going to be also a very important job we're going to have to do, and so obviously we're looking forward to that. Yeah, I think that covers it. There's a lot of other things on this list that we're going to have to pay attention to going forward as well, more than I really need to talk about right now. So, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Quesada, is there anything left?
Of course. Thank you.
What matters most to you to accomplish this year?
Well, pretty much going back, I guess, to item number 1, when we actually we were reviewing the code enforcement in respect to the illegal and overcrowding housing. I think we did see it, and as we have it here, it says complete pending further investigation or deliberation. There was a second portion of what we actually brought up last year, and it was the final COs and the sale of a property. So I think that portion, we should bring that back. I know Lori Lee was kind of put that on hold. We kind of broken that into 2 parts, so to speak. So I think we should bring that back. It's not going to affect any new existing property until it's going up for sale, and that's the part that we need to. I guess we need to enforce that part. And at that point, I guess there was a conversation where we need to make it an announcement and inform the lawyers, the realtor, how the process and what the laws, if it passes, it will affect them when they sell property here in the village of Ossining. So that will be the one. Item number 9, we did complete the pay study for the planning, a portion of the zoning and building process and everything else. And I think a lot of the stuff was implemented. I know Valerie did work a lot of stuff on her department in regards to applications and how the process is. Craig helped out a lot in regards to how the communications are and in regards to a public meeting when they go in front of the planning board or the zoning board now. So everything is 2 monitors in there, is free Wi-Fi. So it's a lot of the stuff that happens with the technology portion in there. I think there's a little more work that needs to be done in the building department in regards to applications and simplify that portion. So I think we can kind of go back and go into the study and actually see what was completed out of the study itself. Because I know there was a lot of suggestions in regards to, the Architecture Review Board. How do we do it? Do we go back into what goes in front of the planning board, what goes in front of the zoning board? In regards to square footage, do we increase, do we decrease that? We do an internal review instead of going to a public review, depending on what the process and depending on the application is. So there's a lot of more than what we actually have in front of us. There's a whole study that Pace did for us. So then we should, even though it's a complete report, but I think we should go back and make sure that we're following with the report itself. With that in mind, we actually go back to, or we're going to go down to 16, and is the vacant property laws in finance and low term. I'm not going to say there's a lot of vacant properties, but there's a few commercial places and some houses out there as well. So I think we should go look into that as well. I know Laura Lee and myself, I send some of the information on different laws or the municipalities. I think we can bring it back at some point again. And start working on that before the end of the year, because I know it's important for a lot of the people that have approached me as well in regards to what are we doing with that? What are we doing with these empty lots or properties, empty buildings? And one of the last ones of the 2014 for me at this point is number 30th. I think everybody's kind of staying in the 20s, so I went down to 30. Kind of makes sense in a way. And that is actually with the help of the building department, the planning department. Valerie did a lot of the work. I helped out a little bit as well. We did a workshop for planning and building, and actually our assessor, the town assessor, was also part of that. Fernando was a big part of this, the whole workshop itself, and I thought it was a pretty good workshop. It was a nice presentation, and I know there's been some concerns, and in our last legislator meeting there was a concern of the smoke detectors, fire alarm, fire safety issues. I think we can definitely bring back this workshop and maybe reinvent it a little bit, and there could be, I know at that point, Victoria and I, you wanted to bring out the green portion of that building at a presentation, and it wasn't part of that because it wasn't geared to that whole thing. But I think this doesn't have to be what we did last time. It could be something different that informs people with the presence of our departments. You know, with the building department, we can invite the fire chief in there, and then we can have a whole different mix related to what the building department and the whole, engineering department. Maybe Paul could be part of that as well. I'm not sure. We'll see how we integrate. You know, that's something that we can look into.
Now, is that, let me just get a clarity on, is that something that you're talking about, having a lot of department heads help coordinate it? Is that something that we would want to have a lot of public engagement, or to be doing it on camera so people can refer to it?
Well, I think there's
Like in-person
something,
public engagement, is that part of it or not?
Yeah.
of course,
Okay.
it has to be. I think it needs to be at that point. And again, it has to be a presentation. It was a presentation last time. We had Valerie Monastra, we have Al Sarasco there, and we have Fernando from the assessor's office. So, Gonzalez, Fernando Gonzalez. I'm not saying that all the department heads have to be part of it, but, you know.
The relevant ones,
Just
yeah.
the relevant in relationship to what we, we are working on a green building code, so to speak. You know, that could be just like a hint of what it actually is about. Where the locations of the fire detectors have to be, what type of, what is required for New York State law, what is the definition of overcrowding, what is the definition of illegal, things that happen, with the boiler or whatever, things of that nature, more simplified than what it is, more graphic maybe. I don't know yet.
I was just looking up on my phone. The reason I asked is because I booked the theater for any Wednesdays that we could in the library because they were so booked up. I went through the whole year, and every Wednesday that was second or fourth, so that we could do part of a work session. We have available to schedule something July 22nd or October 28th.
I think most likely would be, where's Valerie?
She left.
That's something that I guess we'll have to, that's the option, we have, again, it was a lot of work put into this whole presentation last time, and we just have to tweak it, find something, different topics, I guess, to bring it up, not to be the same.
Right.
And last time we engaged half of Austin, and this time I think we should just open it up, everything, because we did send out postcards and that nature, that kind of advertising, but I think this time, it should be just global for the whole village of Austin at
And
that point.
Were you suggesting it should be part of a community meeting that's also a regular work session, or just a night that works?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean,
Okay.
last time we did it as a separate
Right.
entity. This time, I guess it all depends on how much work do we have on a regular work session.
Okay.
If it works with a work session, then that
Okay.
would be great. If it doesn't work with a work session, then we'll try to do something different on a different day.
There are a number of months that have 5 Wednesdays in it, and we normally don't have a meeting. Maybe one of those would be appropriate for this, so it's on a regular meeting night, and I'm not sure which months they are, because I haven't looked. It
Well-
just came to my head just now.
If we wanted to do in the library,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
took
Yeah.
any fifth Wednesday, fourth Wednesday, or second Wednesday
Right,
that was
so,
available,
but the
so,
rec-
but.
Another space, like the rec center would
Absolutely.
work. This would even work, frankly, this room, if we put enough chairs in it.
It was a little bit more crowded last time. We had a couple more people
But yeah, but
last
that's
time.
true, we could do it in the
Oh, yeah.
rec, so
The
pick
rec
the
center.
date
Yeah,
that
that's what we
makes
did
that
last
sense,
time.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great,
Wait, I'm not done yet.
He's not
Okay.
done yet.
So
All right.
what the other item going forward, I guess, with this whole process of I think we did it last year, and we did a lot last year in regards to technology, so to speak. The other item that I guess I would like to bring to the board, and that's something that we can talk to our IT guy, Craig, is reformat our website. There's a couple things there that I think we can do better. Just to simplify a lot of this stuff, I think, and I'm not sure how we go about it, but I think that's something that we can definitely tag along into what we need to complete before the end of the year, I guess, or within the next couple of months, because I think that's important. And it's a lot of information there, but it's just the way we get to that information that we need to simplify it. I'm not, I just do Facebook once in a while and things of that nature. But the people, I'm computed literally sometimes. But I know how to find things around it. And sometimes it's a little more complicated than to do that in our website. And I think we can do much better than we have the people, we have the technology. I think we can do much better work than what we have done in the past. So that will be one of the main things for 2015, I guess.
All right.
I just had one last thing. I know that we've gone over time with this, but is, and we don't have to discuss this now, but I just wanted the public to know that I was going to look into this. Was the established regular meetings of police commissioners and investigate blurting powers? Kind of wanted to know, like, what, the reasoning, of how that came to be, and that was on our list, and what it means, and how this board feels about it or lack thereof. So just wanted to bring that up.
Trustee Doraya?
It's been very dormant for the first 3 years of my tenure on this board. We didn't meet as the police commission except for once, the entire 3 years. And before that, they hadn't met in a number of years prior. So it turns out, by charter, this body, sitting as the police commission, has a great deal of power and flexibility. We just haven't flexed any of it. And there's been a lot of concern about liability and whatnot. But the fact is, you can lock somebody up. Okay? As Trustee Herrera, you actually have the ability to send someone off to the hoosegow. Now, we haven't done that ever, but we could. And there might be a time where that might just be appropriate. I don't know. We haven't taken the time to really look into it, but I agree with you. I certainly would like to, and I'd like to see what other communities do with their Board of Police Commissioners and how they've been able to utilize it in a way that serves the community better. We have it, why not?
Before we move on, I see Corporation Counsel Dixon is biting her tongue. Did you want to just make a brief comment from your perspective on
Sure, I
some
mean-
of the comments that Trustee Doraya just made?
Sure. Keeping in mind that we're starting with a charter that was drafted 200 years ago, and in the intervening 200 years, there have been a lot of superseding legislation by the state, and some of that occupies the field. And also, back in the day, you didn't have a police department, so the police commissioners really stood with a justice of the peace and and constables in that place. So I'd be happy to do sort of a broad-based what other police commissioners are doing. Are there bylaws online? Is there an agenda? Do a broad-based thing with the assistance of our intern from Pace Law School. I could give him an assignment to take a look at it for 2 or 3 hours one afternoon and see what we can come up with, and
Appreciate it.
we can go from there.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be happy
Okay.
to.
That was a very productive discussion, but we are now definitely not on schedule, so.
Okay, so what I need is, what I did last time is I went back, memorialized these, put them all into a format that you could actually read, not my handwriting. And then I would send it back to you all, and then I would ask you to rank them from 1 to whatever number it is. And then you can send them back, and then I would sort of collate them. We'll try to go through them, and then we'll try to prioritize, and then we'll come up with the final. So if that's agreeable, that's what I would propose to do.
Sounds great, thank you.
Okay, very great. And thank you all for all your input. It's, I'm sure, very helpful. The next thing is just, I wanted to just update the board and actually, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. I wanted to jump ahead and sort of take an item out of sync because we have Ingrid Richards, the downtown development manager here, and Paul Frioli is here as well for any comments that might follow up. So since they're both here, I'd like to push their item to where we are now, and then I'll catch up on my items later. Basically, Ingrid Richards, the manager downtown, was charged with taking the 200 Main Street potential RFP and sort of working that as a baseline and going from there to try to come up with a document that we could submit to you and you could consider. consider, discuss, chew over, and see what it is that you wanted to do with it. In the interim, there's also some discussion about having an analysis of the building. So Paul is here to respond to that concern as well. But for the initial topic of the 200 Main Street RFP, I'll turn it over to Ingrid.
Thank you, Manager Richards, for taking me out of sequence. Good evening, Mayor Garrity and board members. In your packet, you received updated draft of the RFP for 200 Main Street. And I am here tonight to ask the board if they have any comments or questions and how they would like to move forward with this RFP. So I'm looking for direction from the board on this
It was
particular document.
it was sent as an attachment from Lisa last week. She scanned in all of the documents that we
Oh, from
needed.
last week.
So
Oh,
I think it was
okay.
probably
Thank you,
Friday
Lisa.
from
Thank you.
Lisa is probably where you're looking for.
Oh,
Oh,
there's one
or
now.
Lori Lee could pass you a hard copy. There we go.
Good. Have you seen this, Omar?
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I can interject, Ingrid, maybe you can just walk through a little bit and sort of highlight what the changes have been and what the RFP proposes to say.
Well, at this point, we kept some of the aspects of the original RFP, and we updated with some of the recent events that have happened in the village of Ossining, noting our strategic objectives as it relates to economic development, what we have done in the past few years, and the type of momentum that, you know, the village has received with regard to development, are looking at enhancing our traffic circulation through making Spring Street two-way, and how that opens up that corridor for us, and just the beautification aspect. So what we did was we added information just so that, you know, potential developers know what we're doing, where we're going, and what the plan is. Because a lot of these developers want to know, you know, what's going on in the village of Ossining? What is the village doing to ensure that businesses are sustainable? Are they inviting investment? Are they inviting developers into the community? We also just updated a number of the documents for review. We informed them about our CalG document that is a very comprehensive document that goes through all of the items that may need to be fixed and provides a cost estimate. Although dated, it is a very valuable document, and we want to ensure that any developer who's interested in 200 Main Street has the opportunity to review it and know it's out there. And those are the major changes that we have made to the document.
Well, I wanted to ask, one of the big changes that I see is the village is willing to consider a private venture or a public/private partnership whereby the village can partner with an entity to provide a dynamic use for residents and visitors alike. That's different than the mindset of the board last year, because the mindset of the board last year was, we're not in the real estate business, we don't want to own this anymore, we don't want a public-private partnership, we want it off our hands. Is there a particular potential developer that's come forward and is interested? Because you know, Steve Essio came by last year and it was kind of dismissed that that's not what the village wants. So what's changed? Why does that now seem like a good idea?
Well, at this point, it's just an additional opportunity that the board can look at. The board can dismiss that opportunity, or they can say, this is an opportunity for us to go out to the market and determine what types of projects, you know, what types of developers may come forward, what types of ideas that may come forward. So it's allowing us to open it up. There was a meeting in December also with the downtown committee, and they suggested it as an opportunity for us to look at public-private partnerships if the board found it to be an appropriate opportunity for the village of Ossining.
Could you just explain to us what would be the differences fundamentally? What are the advantages to, for anybody if we go with a public-private partnership versus selling it to a private entity?
Well, the village can look to obtain grants with this developer. They can look to share the cost of renovating the space with the developer or the business. They can look into tax incentives. So it could be a very collaborative approach if we identify a developer or a business who would like to become involved with us on this project.
I'll open it up to any other trustees that want to ask questions at this point.
It's an option. We're not saying that this is, I don't know that the board's position on public-private partnerships has inherently changed. I don't know that. But I've never found anything that was so onerous you couldn't talk about it. So if you think that putting it out as part of an RFP, that we can sell you the building, or we'd be open to the possibility of a public-private partnership, if you think that will help you get developers interested, I don't see a problem with it being on the table. When somebody shows up to do a public-private partnership, it'll either be appropriate for the people of Ossining or not, and we would make the decision then. That's my thought on it.
Anybody else want to comment on this issue or any others with this RFP proposal?
Yeah, I would just echo what Ingrid said and what Trustee DeRio said, is that you know, we need to consider any possibility coming forward, and we would be less than intelligent about this if we decided to cut off, you know, any options that would have to do with getting the building into, you know, a good and purposeful use, and having the building renovated. It is at the gateway of our community, and it is critical that we leave as many options open to go forward. I don't look at this as being locked into anything. It's all part of a negotiation. It's just creating a wide berth for anybody to come forward and provide some options to us. So.
Yeah, I would just add, it's an opportunity that we should welcome. It's another option, as you know, my colleagues have stated. And also, throughout the county, you're seeing that a lot of municipalities, either from the nonprofit sector to the private sector, are really using the model of a private-public partnership in numerous, you know, ways. I mean, what's great about that is that you determine how it works, right? You determine what you want to do, what you don't want to do, what you will accept, and it's just another option for us to make sure that we're that closer to getting that building filled and fixed and back on the rolls.
Well, that's the question. Does it go back on the rolls?
That is up to the board.
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
If
I
they
don't.
wanted-
but
if
if
the
you're
board
pres-
wanted a recommendation.
Right, but if you're the person who's going to be interfacing with developers, then can we offer Ingrid some clarity? Is it important to us that this be on the tax rolls? Is this something that we think we're going to be able to, we could certainly do the same way we do with Harbor Square, where we are a conduit for applying for grants. That seems to make a lot of sense, but are we also interested then in investing directly into any renovations of a building? If we're not, then that should be communicated as well.
Suppose a church comes forward and says, we have $2 million to invest to get this right. Well, churches don't go on the tax roll. Why would we want to close off that avenue? I think that, again, it's an option that in my opinion, that we should leave open, because we don't know who's going to come forward. We don't know what kind of plan, what kind of entity, what kind of use. And I think that the smart move is to leave everything open, because maybe the only way to save this building is if somebody comes forward to make it into some kind of museum or some kind of a nonprofit that takes it off the tax roll. The clear thing that's most important here is to save this extraordinary example of the Beaux Arts architecture style. There's so few of them, and it's a real jewel. And I think that it's a whatever it takes kind of a situation here. We need to save the building, and I don't think, no stone should be left unturned, no option should be disregarded out of hand, is my thought.
Trustee Quesada.
I agree with Bob and John and what Omar has said. Definitely, thank you, Ingrid, for bringing that up. This definitely is an option that we need to look into that. And I think we all have an agreement that we want the best, what is going to be best for that space and what is going to be best for the village itself. And, it's definitely open to comments at some point, public comments at some point when the RFP comes in or the public integration on this whole thing. One of the other questions that was brought up, and the reason why our engineer is here as well, is if we want to have an additional information for this RFP to be a study to be done in this building. Part of the email or the information that was sent to us is a report that was done in 2003 for an engineering firm. At that point, it was pretty much, it's 57 pages, I think, or
That was the
59 pages.
Calgary report that Ingrid Richards referred
So,
to.
and that one says about $2 million to repair. If I may have Paul come in and just give us a little more of his understanding, I guess, and I'm not sure how much that report was at that time and how much another one will be if that's the case. And I know it's a lap of 2003 to 2015, and a lot has happened to the building in that regards. But I guess we wanted to know what it's going to cost if we do decide to have someone else come in and look at the building to tell us pretty much that what it was is not going to be. It's just got worse. Something that we already know in a way, because a report was done for us. And I'm not sure if I'm sure you were part of that. I think
That was like 12
But-
years ago, right now. Right? Am I doing the math right? Yeah.
Well, I know Richard wasn't here because it was addressed to a different village manager. So
Well, he may have been here, just was in a different role, but yeah, Paul was in as village
Yes,
engineer at the
Paul.
time, so maybe you can speak to
if you don't mind, Paul,
the engineering
please.
report that was done and where we are today in comparison.
I can't offer you, good evening, everybody. I can't offer you too much on that report. I had not been here that long and was not intimately involved with that report. I have been in it, like you said, it was 12 years ago. And the building has changed, not for the better, in 12 years. It's been, for one reason or another, exposed to the elements. And we've done, miscellaneous repairs and remediation along the way, including some electrical upgrades to allow for the exterior lighting to still work properly. And then we did the actual exterior lighting installation, fixed the steps, and did
And the clock.
And the clock,
Which is
yeah,
huge,
correct.
yes.
With that's a pretty big deal as the entry statement. But the main issue with that building, as we all know, is the interior condition. A report that I could speak a little more intelligibly is we had a proposal done with some identification of potential remediation issues, and that report indicated that there was, it necessitated remediation inside. As far as cost on that report, or even on a more recent report, I think it's open. It's as open as your RFP should be. The cost depends on what the eventual user wants to do to the building. Do they want to just remediate it and use it as is? Do they want to go inside and do a complete in-kind restoration? Do they want to take it all the way back to the, to the framing and start from there? I think that's not something that can really be succinct. I think, as you were just discussing now, and this is really digressing a little bit from the engineering component, you should just maintain the RFP as open as possible and see what they want to do, and then you could talk about how you want to tackle the costs associated with that, because I think anything else is premature. But there is most definitely significant remediation necessary in that building, and just so we can kind of talk holistically about it, just the development of the contract documents and the necessary consulting services associated with that, we were talking low six figures. To actually do the work, more than that. So I think the engineering and costs associated with interior renovation is really a very wide range of answers that I could give you today.
Trustee Herrera?
Thank you.
Yes. Is there a way to just, I mean, and I agree, it depends who goes in the building, what they want to do with it, how far they want to go with the renovation. But I still think we could find a way to get a price range to just get the building up to code. So if I wanted to sit in there tomorrow and just be able, you know, to have it up to code and you know, and safe, I guess, is that possible? And does that even make sense?
Well, I'm sorry. I thought
No,
you were done.
I was done. Thank you.
When you say does it make sense, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's fiscally responsible, because it could be good money to bad if you're just bringing it up to code, and then you end up attracting someone that doesn't want or has ideas that don't mesh with the money that you just spent, and then they're going to have to spend money to redo it. And just to answer that by example, if you go in and you bring the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems up to code for that space that exists now, but you bring someone in that wants to convert it into 3 floors, the whole HVAC system takes on a different dynamic and changes. So, you know, same thing with the plumbing. You bring what's there to code, it might be just different than the idea that someone else coming in next would do. So, you know, as far as doing additional studies or defining it, I think any reputable person that will come in, whether it's this quasi-partnership that you were just discussing here, or even a private entity that comes in that's reputable and ready, they're gonna know all the answers to that. They're not really gonna need, I don't think, the village help. They're gonna been there, done that, and they're gonna come in there and do it if they get attracted with the things that attract people like that, like tax incentives and all those other things that, you know, you've dealt with developers now, you know what they want, and those are the things that attract them. So as far as doing work to them just so they can go in and look around to the real deal, I don't think that's a necessary expenditure, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it is going to have to be, somebody who takes this on is going to have very deep pockets, because even if the Calgary report held up and it was 1.95 million to get it to be empty usable space, the going rate in Westchester County is about $300 per square foot for renovations, and it's 5,200 square feet, so that's over $1.5 million. So you're talking about $3.5 million before you have a business open and running.
I was going to ask a question about that,
Yeah.
about these square feet. That's not floor space. You're talking, is that cubic, or is that the actual
It's 2 stories.
floor space?
I'm not really that familiar with the Calgary report.
It's
I
the
think
number
I was-
right here.
I
The
think-
structure is currently vacant and is approximately 5,200 square feet, excluding the basement.
Right, so that's in the report. Somebody wrote that.
That's square footage of usable space. It would be the first floor and the second floor.
Yeah, okay, so it actually is places you can put stuff. They're not counting, it's a very, because it looks like it's a very small footprint with a very large open area.
Well, the second floor was a enhancement
A
to that
2-story.
building. Yeah, it wasn't like
Two-story.
that.
Enhancement's
was
not the right
originally,
word, but yes.
okay. Sorry.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. At the time.
It was thought to be. Ingrid, I do have one other question about something that's specifically in the
Thank you,
report. The 2010 appraisal for the building indicates a market value of $190,000. Isn't this surplus for us? Because it's not usable space? Like, how does that work? Could we sell this building to somebody for $190,000 and be done with it? Or
Yeah, that
do we
goes to
have
the-
to sell it for $190,000 because we're?
I don't know if you get $190,000.
Yeah, well, where does that number come, like, is that?
That's an appraisal of the building in 2010.
Right. The building has
So-
been, all the properties, village properties have been appraised periodically from time to time when someone's shown interest. Your responsibility is to get market value or to otherwise receive adequate consideration. That can be achieved in any number of ways, including, contribution towards infrastructure or other ways that that can be memorialized. It's a good starting off point in terms of that's what the building was worth in 2010. If and when you decided to sell it or do otherwise in 15, you'd have to satisfy yourself that you have, approached realistic value for the building.
Even though it would cost somebody $2 million to even do something,
Well, sure, because it's,
It
And
has,
that's
everything
why
has
a
an inherent
public-private-
value.
That's why a public-private partnership is a possible option that the board should truly consider. Given how important this building is to the community, our ultimate goal is to ensure that there's a dynamic use. I don't know if it's a business, I don't know what it's going to be. There's a dynamic use and people are entering the building, they're having fun in the building. Right now, it's dormant. So I think it's appropriate to consider all options for this building.
So if that means selling it for $1, if we get someone that's willing to invest the $3 million, that's an option, right, that we
that
should
would be
consider.
part of the negotiation, and we look forward to reading the RFP
we have to be
response.
very careful, though, because if you have a piece of property that's appraised at $190,000 and you give it away for $1,
Yeah.
there will be those people there will be people, for sure, who will come forward and make huge noises about us abusing our authority. Make no mistake that we have to be very, very careful how we dispose of property that belongs to the
To
people.
the taxpayers, agreed.
Yeah. And,
Right, but right now, it's a financial drain on the village, and it's absolutely no value to the village. So that would be part of the discussion is, exactly how we could be compensated, and it wouldn't necessarily be with $190,000 in
Would
cash.
be,
And I just
once
threw
you,
that out
once you have identified it, an individual or a corporation or a not-for-profit or a partner, then you hand it over and we'll work up a term sheet and work through the negotiations and create a contract that makes everybody happy. And we'll make sure we hit all those highlights in terms of getting fair market value for whatever that
Yes.
means.
We need to change the tape. Do we have 30 seconds to wrap it up so that we can let Ingrid go before we change the tape? Okay.
Okay, well, thank you, board members. At this point, I would just need direction. When does the village board want us to start the distribution of this document?
Forthwith.
Yeah, if there aren't any modifications that we're making to it, then I don't know why we wouldn't do it tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
That's
Have a
good
wonderful
news.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid.
We're going to take a very quick recess to change tapes.
The board and also to speak to the public on some of the things that we've been working on in the manager's office. So the night is wearing on, and we have an executive session to follow, so I will hit on a few of the things we've been working on, and I will try not to belabor it. As the mayor indicated, almost from the beginning of the year, we've been dealing with storm events almost every week. They've been ranging from, the public as well knows well that it's ranged from significant and repeated snowfalls to icing, windy conditions, as well as extreme cold. We thank the public for your patience. We've done really the best we can under these circumstances. We've issued a snow emergency streets declaration, which requires that cars not be left on designated emergency streets during these events to enable them to be more easily cleared by the DPW and also to be taken care of by the police as well. We've done that on 2 different occasions, and each and every event such as this, which are pretty substantial for these communities at this point in time, requires a lot of coordination, constant contact with all the affected departments, most notably the police and the DPW staff. And I thank them, our chief of police and all of his staff, and also our village engineer, Paul Feroli, and please thank all of the men and women who are working there, who've worked so hard. We really appreciate it. We mobilized the Office of Emergency Management for one storm. We participated in calls with Con Ed and with the County of Westchester. As I say, we're fortunate to have such dedicated personnel that have helped our community through these events. We're hoping for no more snow. And the village remains within our overtime and supply budgeting for these type of events at this time. However, as I say, we are hoping for no more, just to keep us in the black. We've had a lot of personnel activity since the opening of 2015. The first thing and the one that we're most happy about is we welcomed in our new superintendent of recreation, Chris Soy, and I think he's doing really well, and we're very happy that he was able to join us. Since that date, we've also hired a new employee in the Public Works Department, and the village has taken on the new police officers that were required to effectively deal with the village's commitment to policing in the town of Ossining outside of villages, commencing January 1, 2015, and that's going very well. We're delighted to partner with the town in that. We also interviewed and hired a part-time planner in the planning department. Separately, I participated, we interviewed candidates for, and we have appointed a new member to the planning board for the recently vacated chair, and that committee is now full. I also participated in interviews with candidates for membership on the Downtown Development Committee. Since the beginning of the year, I've spent much time addressing personnel issues and meeting with department heads and council. We've had several administrative hearings on various issues and determinations, and have over the past year, I have to say, we dealt effectively with more personnel issues and disposed of them in an effective way more than during my entire 5-year tenure as village manager. So it's extremely challenging. We have very, very excellent and supportive staff. It's very difficult to deal with people's application at work, and we try to do it sensitively and with great care. Recently, we attended an update meeting with the town of Ossining on the town-wide assessment revaluation project. We met with representatives on behalf of NIPA and their electric car charging program, which we're hoping to install at the railroad station. I communicated it today again with the representative from the electrical contractor, and I was promised I would hear back tomorrow with respect to NIPA and what's going on that end to confirm the program and the engagement of the village. So I'll get back to you as soon as I hear on that. We recently attended a meeting with the County of Westchester on the tax cap and tax planning program going forward. I met with the chief of police in finalizing the new access system at the police and court headquarters. We had a meeting with Mazer Engineering regarding the preparation of final plans for improvement of the Spring Street two-way project. That will be coming back to you shortly. We had a conference with the town actually today and Verizon on the village's cable contract and the impending PEG monies receivable that should be coming in from Verizon. So we're going to have more information on that for you shortly. Council Lori Lee Dixon and I had another meeting with the town of Ossining Justice Court and ComPlus that manages the village parking tickets to try to agree on language, additional language to be added to tickets and the monthly warning notices. And I think we're past that hurdle for now. We recently had meetings with representatives from the New York City water system and Hazen and Sawyer regarding New York City's plans to monitor and evaluate water consumption for the purpose of preserving future supply and possible collaboration with the village of Ossining, inasmuch as the village of Ossining is one of the largest users of New York water outside of the city of New York. We rank among the top 10. So they're very interested in partnering with us and helping us to implement standards for greater savings and greater production from the system.
So
Yeah.
did you say a date that we were going to be hearing from them?
Yeah, they're going to be coming in either the first or second work session in March.
March
Yeah, I think the second, I believe.
25th?
Yes. Yesterday, the mayor and I and Christina met with the new president of Phelps Hospital, and that was interesting too. It's always good to touch base with your partners in the community and in the interest of common community concerns and additional ways that we can collaborate and help each other. In the interim, I also met with several adjoining property owners, as did council, in the Kilbrook Sewer Project. So we continue to move forward on the finalizing the easements on that area for the Kilbrook Project and also the upcoming recreational walking path component. Recently assisted the finance office in finalizing the submission of the final grant application for the New York State funding for part of the Lower Main Street Secor Road infrastructure. That was a grant that was sent our way from Senator Carlucci's office, so we're looking forward to that being processed and receiving the funds towards that project. I finalized this village lease of steamer firehouse, and all leases have been signed and are current through the beginning of this year. Early in the year, we participated in a telephone meeting and presentation of the Mind Mixer program with the mayor and with Valerie, which the village ultimately engaged in, and I think will be a great tool to obtain citizen input, both on the Market Square potential as well as other areas of public concern. Valerie and Ingrid and I have been meeting to discuss next steps on presenting the board with potential RFPs for village properties, and I'm happy that tonight you determined to go forward with 200 Main Street. That's a big step. Thank you for that. Participated with the village planner in a debrief with the state of New York on the recent dock grant application and proposed actions for future application for the actual construction. So we're very optimistic that going forward with the grant contract for the planning and the finalization of plans will be very helpful to get the ultimate grant for the construction of the dock. We all attended the recent ribbon cutting in the new apartment rental building and commercial building constructed on the former We Can Do It parking lot, and we're happy to see them moving forward with their rentals. In the interim, I'm always meeting with constituents on a number of concerns, including building enforcement and concerns with neighboring properties and uses in particular neighborhoods. We've had an internal meeting to deal with individual street and infrastructure issues as they come up from day to day. I met with the Austin Police Department on 2 applications for running events in the village, one of which is the Clearview School, which has been scheduled, and the second one is a mini marathon, which will be coming down from a group up in Croton. We're waiting to hear back from them. And then I do the usual things, which is chairing the monthly staff meetings, the OEM meetings, and also assisting in the agenda preparation. So that's what I've been up to.
Thank you.
That's a lot. Thank you.
So, on that happy note, the next item is, we try to periodically review capital projects. There are a number of pending capital projects. There are a number that are not dormant, if you will, but that have been completed and are just waiting to be closed out for technical reasons. I just wanted to sort of hit on some of the ones that have seen the most recent change. And the first one I wanted to mention was the generator at the Rodriguez Operations Center. This project installation and the training is now complete. The project is ready to be closed, and that will be in May of 2015. So that generator will be complete installation at the Rodriguez Center, which is a very good thing. Fire department, the fire pumper apparatus was delivered on February 19th, so we're happy to have that in, and I know all the members of the fire department and the board are as well. Community Center, Sun Deck, the project work is complete. We've submitted the drawdown documents to the County of Westchester in order to receive what will be the last committed funds for CDBG through the County of Westchester on that phase anyway. The planning, the architectural historic district signage, we're hopeful and projecting a completion date for that project by fall of 2015. Market Square and parking lot redevelopment, which is at this point the two-way Spring Street project. We have met with Mazer, as I indicated, and we will be coming forward with bid documents and presentation by them with their plan that they've been developing. That will be coming in shortly.
Now, they presented to us before we approved the pilot what
Right.
was a really wonderful, exciting possibility for that
Right.
intersection. Was that the whoopee-zoo, you've got a lot of money plan, or was that what we're doing?
Yeah, they're going to come in with something that's probably a little bit tailored down, but you're going to have options. You're going to have options to, to upgrade at a number of levels. I think they're going to come in with 3 different options.
Okay.
So, a lot of it has to do with, Paul's here, but a lot of it has to do with we make a decision whether you want to replace the light or not, or if you want to leave the light alone, if you want to, really modernize that. Do you want to basically redo the entire intersection, or are you going to stick to the periphery in terms of, the improved sidewalks, the planters, all the physical amenities that you see and that you like, you can do. The major costs drivers are going to be what you do with that light, if anything. And also the pedestrian crossings, it's to what level that you want to bring them up to date, and, at what point you want to leave them alone. And do you want the entire intersection to be dug up or not, or do you want to just do the things that will be more surface? But that they'll be coming in with those options. You'll
Great.
have some good choices. Okay. Harbor Square Promenade, I believe that an extension is being sent through on that for that project to hopefully be completed this spring. The Village Dock extension we spoke about. We are going ahead with the provide for the drawings so that we'll be ready to go forward with the work when they're looking for the funding for the actual construction. The Kilbrook sanitary system, sanitary sewer infrastructure improvement as per the DEC requirement. There's some remaining items to be done. Some of the things you discover when you open up a project, you see additional things that have to be done. So they're still working on a redesign on the switchback, which is what's going to take the path from the Kilbrook up to the community center. There's inspection work that's going on, and again, when you go into a project, you see other things that need to be done. So Broadway Bridge rehabilitation will ultimately probably be brought back as a separate capital project.
Where are we with the easements? Because I know there are quite a few that Lori Lee had started working on. Are you getting some good progress? You told me about one of them was moving forward, but
I was saying that in my other report, I had actually been working on 2 of them, and I know Lori Lee's been working on a bunch of them. Yeah. So we are making progress.
okay.
And on the reservoir and dam reconstruction, anticipate the project bid this year. We're still awaiting the Hope For grant, that elusive grant that is so important because it'll be so much money to help on that project. We're still awaiting that. And the generator installation at the Indian Brook Water Treatment Plant is 60% complete. The weather's been holding it up, but that should be complete this spring. And that's really an update on the capital projects.
Thank you.
Terrific.
So there are a number of resolutions that follow on the agenda, and they are either contained there, and there are also some additional finance resolutions that were passed on today. These are really housekeeping items, and they will be on your agenda for next week. So if there are no other questions, if we could have I would turn it back to the chair, but I would ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining matters.
So moved.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. So yes, the motion is on the table.
Second.
We go into executive session to discuss a number of items, which includes collective bargaining,
A specific
personnel regarding individuals. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us for this evening's work session. It's February 25th. We hope that you will join us again next month. No? Yeah, it is next month. It's also next Wednesday, March 4th, at the 8688 Spring Street Courthouse for our regular meeting. Thank you very much.